When Willow's childhood male best friend showed up at my place for the third time, I knew this relationship had to end. So I stopped holding back and directly sent her little childhood friend rolling down the stairs in the most graceful way possible. Willow helped Makoto up and, with a face full of grief and anger, pointed at me and accused. "George, how can you be so vicious? Apologize to Makoto right now." I didn't argue with her like I usually would. I simply said calmly, "Apologize, sure." Seeing me agree, Willow's face lit up with a smile, just about to praise me for being sensible. Then I pointed at Makoto beside her and continued. "But he has to kneel to hear it." Chapter 1. The moment my words fell, Willow instantly exploded. "George, are you done yet? You made Makoto roll down the stairs, shouldn't you apologize?" I curled my lips. "Willow, since when did you go blind? He was the one who pushed me from behind. Didn't you see that? I dodged it, and tripped him along the way. What's the problem?" Willow glared at me, puffing with anger. "George, I've told you before, I treat Makoto like my own younger brother, as his brother-in-law. Can't you just give in to him? What's wrong with taking a little loss? Don't you know that suffering a loss is a blessing?" My vision went dark. She's really not speaking like a human anymore. A blessing from taking a loss? Fine. Willow, then I wish you blessings as vast as the sea. Blessings falling from the sky. Makoto, who had been hiding behind Willow, timidly stepped forward. "Willow, don't argue with George because of me. It's my fault for coming to see you." As he spoke, he began to sob softly. Willow immediately pulled him into her arms. "George, can't you learn from Makoto? He's already hurt, and he's still worried about our relationship." I rolled my eyes. "Willow, you may not be a pretentious coquette, but haven't you ever seen one? And you're actually protecting this low-grade creature." Makoto, who had been pretending to be weak the whole time, couldn't keep up the act after hearing low-grade creature. He pointed at me, his face twisted in rage. "Who are you calling?" His words were cut off by my scream. The moment he pointed his finger out, I dashed forward and met his finger head-on, with my forehead. The next second, I covered my eye and screamed. "Ah, you dared to stab my eye. Makoto's trying to kill me." After shouting that, I threw a straight punch at him. Unexpectedly, Makoto could take a hit. He staggered but didn't fall. That wouldn't do. I immediately jumped up and followed with a flying knee. This time, Makoto couldn't hold on. Clutching his stomach, he collapsed on the ground, wailing. I didn't continue attacking. Article 20, Paragraph 1 of the criminal law tells me, once someone is down, you absolutely cannot strike again. If you do, it's no longer self-defense. Willow was completely stunned. It wasn't until Makoto wriggled over to her feet like a maggot that she snapped out of it. She quickly helped him up. "Makoto, are you okay? I'll take you to the hospital right now." Makoto couldn't even speak anymore. He waved his hand and stayed hunched there, dry heaving. Willow looked up at me. I was still standing in my finish the job pose, looking calm and unbothered. "George, are you crazy? Why did you hit him?" I pointed at the camera in the center of the living room and said, "I'm warning you, don't talk nonsense, or I'll sue you for defamation." Willow glanced at the camera, her teeth grinding audibly. "Fine. I can't argue with you. Get out. Leave. Fine. If this place won't have me, there'll be somewhere else. If nowhere takes me, I'll just sleep on the streets." I returned to the bedroom and quickly packed my belongings into a suitcase. Dragging it behind me, I walked toward the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, Willow's cold voice sounded from behind me. "George, if you dare walk out that door today, we're breaking up." Although I had long prepared myself mentally, when the moment of breakup actually came, my heart still felt like it was being torn apart. I turned around and looked at Willow calmly. "Remember what you said today. Whoever regrets it is a dog." After saying that, I picked up my suitcase and walked out the door. Chapter 2. A furious roar erupted behind me. "George, if you dare walk out today, don't ever come back." I rolled my eyes. I hadn't planned on coming back anyway. Ignoring Willow's helpless, rage-filled outburst, I walked straight out of the home I had lived in for 6 years. As I stepped onto the bustling street, a faint, lingering ache began to spread through my chest. The painful withdrawal had begun. 6 years with Willow, letting go of that kind of relationship was genuinely hard. To be honest, our relationship had always been good. 4 years in college, 2 years working, there had been no constant arguing, no breaking up and getting back together. We had always gotten along well, even started talking about marriage, but Makoto's appearance shattered all of that. The first time I saw him, I already didn't like him. That day, Willow came home and told me her younger brother was coming over. I was stunned and asked in surprise, "Your parents had another kid? How did I not know about this?" Willow shot me an annoyed look. Before she could explain, there was a knock at the door. She ran over excitedly to open it. A moment later, she pulled a guy in front of me. "George, this is my younger brother Makoto. He just came back from abroad." The guy named Makoto opened his arms enthusiastically, trying to hug me. I quickly stuck out my hand to block him. Cut it out, I'm not into that. After awkwardly shaking my hand, Makoto casually dropped onto the sofa and started complaining to Willow that he was hungry. Willow immediately tied on an apron and went to the kitchen to cook. I glanced at Makoto, who had his legs propped up on the coffee table, and frowned. Then I followed Willow into the kitchen. After closing the door, I asked, "So, is this your dad's secret kid, or did your mom have him on the side?" Willow held her forehead, looking at me helplessly. "Honey, can your thinking be a little more normal? He's the boy next door. I've always treated him like a younger brother. We're really close. We grew up together, and only separated after high school when he went abroad." I understood instantly. Brother my ass, this was a childhood sweetheart situation. While cooking, Willow added, "I'm telling you, Makoto is like my little brother. You're not allowed to bully him." I stayed silent. After a long pause with no response from me, she looked up, only to find my face had already darkened. Confused, she asked, "Honey, what's wrong?" I've always been the type to say what's on my mind. I don't like bottling things up. Willow, I don't like this brother of yours. Don't let him come over anymore. And you, keep your distance from him. Willow frowned, clearly displeased. "George, what do you mean?" I let out a cold laugh. "Nothing much. I just think home is a private space. I don't like strangers barging in, especially one with zero sense of boundaries." As I spoke, I pointed toward Makoto outside. Through the glass, he was lounging with his legs up, fiddling boredly with the decorations on the coffee table. Maybe Willow also felt he was being too casual. She softened her voice to comfort me. "He's just a kid who hasn't grown up yet. Don't take it so seriously." I looked at her speechlessly. A kid with a full beard. At the dinner table, Makoto picked at the food, acting nothing like a guest. Willow, who was usually impatient, actually put up with him, coaxing him gently and constantly placing food on his plate. I watched this so-called pair of siblings coldly. After finally enduring the meal, I thought Makoto would leave, but instead, he sat on the sofa and turned on the TV, suppressing my irritation. I cleared the dishes and went to the kitchen to wash them. When I came out, I saw Willow, now in her pajamas, sitting beside Makoto, watching TV with him. But Makoto wasn't looking at the screen. He was staring directly at her chest. "Fuck you, eating ice cream so blatantly right in front of me. You think I can tolerate that?" Chapter 3. I pointed at Makoto and cursed loudly. "Where the hell are your damn eyes looking? If you don't want them anymore, I can gouge them out for you." My words startled the two people on the sofa. After noticing Makoto's gaze, Willow awkwardly pulled her pajama top tighter. "George, don't be like this." Makoto didn't mean it. Seeing that Willow wasn't angry, Makoto immediately grew bolder. "George, you're being too sensitive. Willow and I are like siblings. When we were kids, we even bathed together and slept in the same bed." That was a blatant provocation. I didn't indulge him. I grabbed the ashtray and told him to get out. Seeing me lose my temper, Makoto scurried off in embarrassment. After he left, Willow blew up at me. I refused to back down. Just like that, we fell into a cold war. A week later, Willow took the initiative to soften her attitude, and only then did things slowly ease between us. I thought that after this incident, Makoto would disappear from our lives, but unexpectedly, a month later, he showed up at my place again. That day, I had worked overtime. When I got home at night, I saw Makoto lying on the sofa. Willow was crouched beside him, carefully wiping his face with a towel. When she saw me come in, her expression turned a little nervous. "Honey, don't misunderstand, Makoto drank too much." My face darkened. "Willow, didn't I tell you to stay away from him? How did you manage to treat my words like they meant nothing? Is he an orphan? Does he have no one else to take care of him? Or is he just an excuse for you to indulge your own bad behavior?" After being scolded, Willow immediately became angry out of embarrassment. "George, why do you have to talk like that? Makoto only drank too much because he was helping me take drinks." She rambled on and on. Finally, I understood what had happened. Looking at Willow, who was full of righteous indignation, I let out a cold laugh. "I told you to stay away from him, yet you used your connections to get him into your company. Impressive." After saying that, I didn't even look at her and walked straight into the bedroom. Not long after, Willow carefully climbed onto the bed and hugged me from behind, softly apologizing. I ignored her, lying there with my eyes closed, silent. When she saw I wouldn't respond, her voice began to tremble with tears. "Honey, I was wrong. Can you forgive me this once? I promise I'll stay far away from him from now on." I thought for a moment, then turned over and asked calmly, "Willow, tell me the truth, were you two ever together?" She hesitated for a long time before finally mumbling, "Honey, we were together in high school, but now we're just like siblings. You're the only one in my heart. If I believe that, I deserve to be cheated on." Childhood sweethearts. First love. Reunited after years apart. Still unforgettable. All the classic romance tropes stacked on the two of you, and you still dare say I'm the only one in your heart. I suddenly sat up and started cursing at Willow again, pointing right at her face. Just as I was in full swing, Makoto's voice came from outside. Willow, I don't feel well. Get me a glass of water. Willow responded and was about to get up, but I pushed her back down onto the bed. Seeing the look on my face, Willow understood and panicked. She pushed against me with all her strength, but didn't dare make too much noise. She pleaded with me in a low voice. I didn't budge. In the end, Willow could only tightly cover her mouth, trying to keep herself from making a sound. Hey, who says covering your mouth stops all sound? So that night, every time Makoto called out for Willow, she would let out a muffled cry in response. After a few times, Makoto seemed to understand and stopped calling her, but how could that be enough? I got out of bed and opened the bedroom door. When I returned to the bed, Willow's startled cries, her pleas, and her muffled sounds filled the entire room. Chapter 4. Makoto ran off. I also lost any interest in continuing. Lying on the bed, I looked at Willow coldly and warned. Willow, remember this is the last time. If you get entangled with Makoto again, we're done. After 6 years together, it was the first time I had ever said the word breakup. Willow panicked, ignoring the weakness in her body. She burrowed into my arms and hugged me tightly. Honey, don't worry, I'll keep my distance from him from now on. This time, Willow kept her word. After that, I didn't hear Makoto's name for a long time. My heart gradually settled down. So when Willow suggested that both families meet to discuss marriage, I agreed without hesitation. But today, when both families finally met, something still went wrong. At the dinner, both sides were chatting happily. Willow took a phone call and hurried out. Worried, I followed her. To my surprise, I saw Makoto at the front door. He was crying miserably, questioning Willow about why she had been ignoring him and not answering his calls. Willow said nothing, but as Makoto made more and more of a scene, Willow glanced around. In the end, she opened the door and let him in. The moment I saw the two of them walk inside together, my heart turned cold. I knew then, our 6 years were over. I got out of the car, pushed open the door, and, seeing no one in the living room, headed straight for the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, I could hear their voices in broken fragments. Willow, I don't believe you have no feelings for me at all. You still like me, I know it. After a long silence, Willow sighed. Makoto, forget about me. George and I are getting married at the end of the year. The next moment, Makoto's voice rose in agitation. Willow, you can't marry him. If you marry him, what am I supposed to do? Others might not know, but you do. I came back to this country for you. To hell with this, little brother. To hell with that, you're the only one in my heart. I kicked the door open and pointed at both of them. Get the hell out here, both of you. Caught red-handed, Willow's face turned deathly pale. Honey, listen to me. I can explain. What was there left to explain? I ignored her and turned to walk downstairs. As I was going down, I caught a glimpse of Makoto sneaking up behind me, reaching his hands toward me. I sidestepped and stuck out my foot at the same time. Makoto tumbled straight down the stairs. After that came the scene where Willow demanded that I apologize, and I insisted it was self-defense. After returning to the hotel, I immediately took my parents out of the restaurant. I told them that Willow and I had broken up. Seeing how bad I looked, my parents didn't ask any questions. After settling them in for the night, I went back to my own room. Lying on the bed, I began thinking about what to do next. Sure, my mind would still wander sometimes. I would still think of Willow now and then, but I kept reminding myself, never let toxic people or messy situations hold you back. Breaking up decisively was the right choice. I would definitely have a good future, but that future would not include Willow. My phone kept ringing nonstop. I didn't even need to look to know it was Willow calling. Annoyed by the noise, I simply turned it off. The next morning, as soon as I turned my phone back on, notification sounds flooded in like a tidal wave. Looking at the 99+ missed calls and messages, I frowned. Just as I was about to put the phone down and call my parents to go eat, another message came in. Willow wrote, Honey, where are you? Can you reply to me? I immediately blocked her, then called my parents and headed to the restaurant. During the meal, they asked what had happened. I didn't hide anything. I told them everything about Willow and Makoto. After hearing it, my dad sighed and said nothing. My mom, on the other hand, wasn't too upset. She gently comforted me. Honestly, this might be for the best. If you found out after getting married, it would have been even worse. I nodded. She continued. Son, dating is about getting to know each other, personality, family background, character. If you realize during that process that the other person isn't right for you, don't ever try to change them. Everyone has their own lessons to learn. Advice from those who've been through it doesn't always get through to those who haven't. Focus on your work and your life. Don't worry about your dad and me. After breakfast, we'll head back. We won't stay here and be a burden to you. Looking at my sensible mother, my eyes grew a little moist. I had originally planned that once the marriage with Willow was settled, I would let them stay here for a while. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. After seeing my parents off at the high-speed rail station, I felt a bit down. Just as I reached the exit, someone blocked my path. I looked up and saw a police officer in uniform. A hint of unease rose in my chest. The officer showed me his badge. "You're George, right?" I nodded. "There are some matters we need you to assist with in our investigation. Please come with us to the station." Chapter 5. When I was taken into the interrogation room, my mind was still a mess. Why were the police looking for me? It couldn't be that Willow had reported me for assault, right? Based on what I knew about her, she wasn't that absurd. The officer in charge of the interrogation cleared his throat. "Name, age, gender." I answered one by one. After writing everything down, the officer looked up at me with a cold gaze. "Do you know why you've been brought here?" I shook my head, putting on an innocent expression. The officer snorted. "Stop pretending. What were you doing yesterday at 7 p.m.? I thought for a moment, then suddenly realized. "Officer, was it a man named Makoto who reported this?" The officer grinned. "Now you remember." I let out a long breath. "Officer, I've been wronged. Let me get my phone. I have evidence." The officer didn't make things difficult for me and took me to the property room. After retrieving my phone, I opened the remote monitoring app for my home security system. I pulled up the footage from last night. After watching it, the officer looked at me speechlessly. "Man, you're pretty professional." "Huh?" I gave an awkward smile. He shook his head. "All right, let's go to the mediation room. The complainant is waiting. I'll try to mediate this." In the mediation room, I saw Makoto clutching his stomach, with Willow sitting beside him. When she saw me come in, Willow immediately stood up and tried to explain. "Honey, I'm sorry. I told Makoto not to call the police, but he wouldn't listen to me." I didn't even look at her. I sat directly across from them. The mediation began. After the officer explained the situation, I finally understood. Apparently, that knee strike I delivered last night had been too hard. It ruptured Makoto's spleen and caused internal bleeding. Looking at Makoto holding his stomach, my respect for him surged like an endless river. "Makotini, I've gotta admire you. You're this badly hurt and still not lying in a hospital bed, yet you insist on coming here to report it in person. Couldn't you just make a phone call? It's not like it costs anything." Makoto glared at me viciously. "George, I want to see you get arrested with my own eyes." I spread my hands helplessly. The officer looked at Makoto with displeasure. "Whether he gets arrested or not isn't up to you." Makoto looked confused. "He injured me. Why aren't you arresting him?" The officer waved his hand impatiently. "I've seen the video. It's self-defense. Right now I'm here to mediate between you two." Makoto immediately protested. "On what grounds?" "I don't accept mediation. I'm going to sue him." Before the officer could speak, Willow tugged hard on Makoto's arm, but Makoto was clearly fired up and shook her off. Seeing his firm attitude, the officer simply closed his notebook. "Fine, then go ahead and sue. I'm done here." Makoto took out his phone and called someone. During the call, he even asked Willow for the surveillance footage from our home. Willow looked at me, clearly asking for my permission. I waved my hand indifferently. "Give it to him." She sent the video to Makoto. After a while, as he listened to the voice on the other end of the phone, his expression grew worse and worse. When he hung up, he slumped back in his chair. The officer looked at him with amusement. "Still want to sue?" Makoto puffed up angrily. "My lawyer said that even if it's self-defense, since I was injured, I can still demand humanitarian compensation." The officer laughed and reopened his notebook. "Now that's more like it. That's exactly what I'm trying to mediate here." Then he turned to me. "George, you heard him. You did injure him. After all, you should at least offer some compensation." I scratched my head and looked at him. "Out of humanitarian concern." The officer nodded. I rummaged in my pocket for a while and pulled out a single coin. I placed it on the stainless steel table with a clear clang. "Makotini, this is all the humanity I've got. Think it's enough?" Chapter 6. The officer turned his face away, covering his mouth. Willow looked at me speechlessly. Makoto's face was pale, whether from pain or anger. I couldn't tell. He started cursing at me. I looked at the officer, but he didn't even glance at me, as if he thought I deserved it. Helpless, I could only stand there and listen with a faint smile. Before long, blood began to trickle from the corner of Makoto's mouth. I quickly stopped him. "Makotini, cut it out, you're coughing up blood." Both the officer and Willow turned to look at him. Seeing the blood, Willow looked at the officer. The officer was completely speechless. "Why are you looking at me? Get him to a hospital." Willow let out an "oh," then turned to me, pleading. "Honey, wait for me. I'll take him to the hospital and come back to you right away." I snorted, giving no real response. Left with no choice, Willow helped Makoto out of the police station, watching the two of them disappear. I reached out and shook the officer's hand. "Officer, can I go now?" He nodded. After leaving the station, the thought of Willow being with Makoto still stung faintly. Annoyed, I shook my head, forcing those messy thoughts away. I got in my car and headed toward the company. After graduating, I had originally planned to return to my hometown, but Willow had pleaded with me over and over again. And in the end, I chose to stay. I thought my sacrifice would earn her appreciation. Turns out, it only led us to go our separate ways. Sigh. I was still too naive, actually believing in love. After arriving at the office, I buried myself in work. Programming requires focus. Sure enough, once I started working, I didn't think about Willow anymore. I worked until nightfall before leaving my desk. On the drive back to the hotel, I first called my landlord. I told him I wouldn't be renewing the lease. As for whether Willow would stay or not, that had nothing to do with me anymore. After hanging up, I hesitated about where I should rent a place next. But then I thought about my parents' slightly unsteady backs as they left earlier that day, and my heart tightened. Without realizing it, they had grown old. As an only child, it was time for me to do something for them. Parents don't ask for anything in return, that's what makes them great. They always say things like, "Don't worry about us. As long as you're doing well, we're happy." But what parent wouldn't want their child by their side? Damn it, forget renting. I'm going back home. After making up my mind, I returned to the hotel and immediately checked job listings in my hometown. Coincidentally, a state-owned enterprise was hiring technical staff with a computer science background. I quickly contacted HR and sent in my resume. They said they would get back to me tomorrow. After closing my laptop, I went downstairs and walked out of the hotel. On the bustling streets, memories began flashing before my eyes like scenes from a movie. I had spent 8 years in this city, 4 years in college, 4 years working. In those 8 years, I had become familiar with every street and every building. In my junior year, Willow and I got together. We explored the city's food together, checked in at different landmarks, walked hand in hand through every street and alley. Back then, love was simple and beautiful, so beautiful that even now, I still remember it vividly. If memories are a maze, then right now, I'm someone wandering inside it, looking at the familiar streets. I could almost see our younger selves, hand in hand, full of life. I took a deep breath, knowing I couldn't let myself get lost in this. After thinking for a moment, I headed straight to the milk tea shop near campus, the one Willow and I used to visit every week. I ordered a cup of bubble milk tea and walked into the campus. I began retracing every path we had once walked together. It wasn't until midnight that I returned to the hotel. Finally, my heart felt a little lighter. Letting out a long breath, it seemed that Willow's image in my mind had grown a little more distant. I was glad I had the strength to walk away, and I believed I could move on from this relationship. Chapter 7. The HR from the state-owned company replied quickly. Early the next morning, I received a message. They scheduled my interview for 2 p.m. After hanging up, I took a day off from work. Then I began reviewing all the projects I had worked on over the years, preparing for possible interview questions. It wasn't until noon that I finally finished. Stretching, I got ready to go out for lunch. Just as I finished getting dressed, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, I saw Willow standing outside. Without saying a word, she lowered her head and tried to squeeze her way in. I raised my hand to stop her. "This is my room. What are you doing barging in? If the police show up, it'll be hard to explain." Willow lifted her head and looked at me stubbornly. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't even bother wiping them. We stared at each other for a long time, neither willing to speak first. It wasn't until a housekeeping staff member pushed a cart past us that I stepped aside and let her in. After entering, Willow continued to glare at me, silent, saying nothing, just letting her tears fall. I shrugged indifferently and kept staring back at her. In the end, she was the first to break. She burst into tears. "George, how can you be so heartless? If I didn't come find you, were you never planning to come home?" I wanted to tell her, even if you came, I wouldn't go back, but to avoid unnecessary trouble, I kept my mouth shut. Seeing how miserably she was crying, I spoke to persuade her. "Willow, since we've broken up, can't we just part on good terms?" Willow broke down completely. "George, are you really going to break up with me? We've been together for 6 years. I rolled my eyes helplessly, thinking, so what if it's 6 years? People divorce after decades. Seeing that I still wasn't budging, Willow finally realized I was serious this time. She panicked. With a thud, she dropped to her knees in front of me, placing her hands on my knees. "Honey, please forgive me this once, okay? I promise this is the last time. Once Makoto is discharged from the hospital, I'll completely cut him off." Looking at Willow begging so humbly, my heart wavered for a moment. The next second, Two voices began pulling at me inside my head. One told me to agree. If I did, I wouldn't have to endure the pain of withdrawal anymore. The other told me not to. It warned that agreeing would only lead to even greater pain in the future. It told me that once trust is broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild. Once the seed of doubt is planted, even if Willow worked late normally, socialized normally, or got stuck in traffic after work, I would still suspect she was secretly meeting another man. Who would want to live a life full of suspicion like that? Yeah, just thinking about it was terrifying. I shook my head and looked at Willow again, my gaze firm as I spoke. Willow, this is where we end. Let's part cleanly. From now on, we're strangers. Willow collapsed on the floor, crying hysterically without any regard for her image. Suddenly, she felt like a stranger to me. During the 6 years we were together, she had always been gentle and easygoing. Even when we argued over Makoto later on, she never lost control like this. But now, seeing her so disheveled and unrestrained, the image I had of her shattered. I even began to dislike her a little, to the point that I kept checking the time, hoping she would leave soon, afraid that because of her, I might miss my 2 p.m. interview. Chapter 8. My repeated glances at my watch clearly irritated Willow. She wiped her tears and stood up. When she looked at me again, her eyes were filled with resentment. George, this is the only time I'll lower myself like this. If you don't appreciate it, don't blame me for being ruthless. I let out a long breath. Yeah, I don't appreciate it. Willow let out a cold snort. Fine, George, remember this, I'll make you regret it. I nodded. I'll remember. Willow left, slamming the door so hard it echoed. I closed the door, immediately opened my laptop, and prepared for the interview. The interview went smoothly. The new company was very satisfied with my technical skills. After it ended, HR expressed their hope that I could join as soon as possible. I nodded and agreed, saying I would do it quickly. The next morning, I went to my company and submitted my resignation. After reading it, my department manager asked if there was anything I was dissatisfied with and said I could bring up any requests. But when he learned I wanted to return to my hometown, he could only sigh helplessly. After signing the paperwork, he helped pass it along to HR. Once I completed the handover, I waited 3 days before HR finally notified me to process my departure. On the day I left, my colleagues threw me a farewell dinner. At the table, everyone expressed how reluctant they were to see me go. After a few drinks, the atmosphere became lively. People started venting, complaining about the company, their spouses, the environment. It seemed everyone had their share of dissatisfaction. I almost wanted to complain about my ex being someone who wanted everything without giving anything, a total toxic partner, but decided against it. After drinking a bit too much, I got up to go to the restroom. The moment I stepped out of the private room, I ran straight into Makoto and Willow. Seeing me, a flash of panic crossed Willow's face. The next second, she hooked her arm around Makoto's and looked at me arrogantly. Makoto froze for a moment, then immediately played along, wrapping his arm around Willow. He looked at me with blatant smugness and provocation, not wanting to deal with these two idiots. I chose to ignore them, but just as I walked past, someone grabbed me. Makoto looked at me mockingly. George, where's your manners? Shouldn't you at least give us your blessing? I was so annoyed I laughed. A blessing? Sure. I turned around, my face full of sincerity. Makotini, you better take good care of Willow. Even though most of her firsts were with me, she's very pure. Even though she played both sides between us, she's very loyal. Even though she moved on to you instantly, you can't say she's an easy woman. Even though. Stop talking. Willow finally couldn't take it anymore and cut me off. Seeing Makoto with a face like his mom just died makes me happy. I patted his shoulder and said earnestly, Makotini, she's the girl you traded a ruptured spleen for. You'd better cherish her. If you lose her again, you won't have that many organs left to rupture. Makoto grabbed Willow and ran off. Watching their flustered retreat, I burst out laughing. Fucking pathetic. What a joke. You asked for my blessing, now you can't handle it. The day I left, I dragged my suitcase to the high-speed rail station. I took one last look at the city where I had lived for 8 years, waved my hand, and said goodbye to it. Just as I reached the entrance, my luggage was suddenly grabbed from behind. I was surprised. Who would be so bold as to try to snatch something so openly? When I turned around, I saw Willow's twisted face. I frowned and said, let go. Willow snorted. No, George, how can you be so heartless, leaving just like that? I instantly got angry. Whether I leave or not has nothing to do with you. Let go now, or I'll call your boyfriend and tell him you're being greedy again, wanting everything. Sure enough, hearing my threat, Willow let go. Actually, I was just bluffing. There was no way I had Makoto's number saved. But when she heard me mention Makoto, Willow actually raised her eyebrows smugly. George, are you regretting it? I was completely speechless. What was she even so proud of? Seeing that I didn't respond, Willow continued, Actually, I can't let go of you either. If you're willing to get back together with me, maybe I'll choose you. I have to admit, I was completely defeated by Willow's shamelessness. I quickened my pace and walked straight into the station. Willow couldn't get in, so she could only shout at me across the security checkpoint. George, if you leave today, there will never be any chance for us again. I made a V sign without the index finger at her. Without looking back, I walked into the waiting hall. Chapter 9. The next time I saw Willow was at my wedding, 5 years later. At that moment, I had just finished exchanging rings with my wife. Amid a chorus of blessings, I caught sight of Willow standing in a corner. She looked terribly worn out, though she was only in her 30s. She looked like a middle-aged woman who had let herself go. The gentle, composed aura she once had was completely gone. If it weren't for the faint traces of her former beauty still lingering on her face, I probably wouldn't have recognized her. We hadn't been in contact for 5 years. I didn't think there was anything left for us to say. So when I came to her table to offer a toast, I simply raised my glass in her direction. But everyone at that table was our former college classmates. They all knew Willow, and they knew about us. They didn't let her off the hook. They kept asking why we broke up back then. Willow kept her head down, saying nothing. It wasn't until the banquet ended, when my wife and I walked out of the hotel, that I realized Willow was waiting at the entrance. My wife looked at her curiously and asked if she was the ex I had mentioned before. I nodded. My wife smiled and ran over, linking arms with my mother. It was obvious, she was giving Willow and me some space to talk alone. Watching my wife walk away, Willow let out a sigh and said softly, "George, your wife is really beautiful." I nodded in agreement. Beautiful, right? I think so too. But there wasn't any vinegar at the banquet, so why do you sound so bitter? Willow rolled her eyes at me and walked over to sit on a stone bench. I followed and sat across from her. Without looking at me, she stared into the distance and spoke slowly. "George, I got divorced." That actually surprised me a little. I had heard from classmates that she married Makoto, but I hadn't expected them to divorce after just 2 years. "George, after you left, I never really moved on. Every time I saw Makoto, I couldn't help but think of you. I almost wanted to curse. In what universe did I resemble that piece of trash? George, if we hadn't broken up back then, do you think we'd have kids by now?" I waved my hand. "Don't talk about me. Talk about yourself." Willow sniffed. "Me? What's there to say about me?" She gave a bitter smile, but continued anyway. "After getting together with Makoto, I just couldn't get into it. My heart was still full of you, but the way you left back then was so decisive, I knew you'd never come back. And honestly, besides him, it felt like being with anyone else would be the same. So when he proposed, I only hesitated for a moment before agreeing. But marriage isn't the same as dating. After marrying him, I realized we weren't compatible at all. Makoto is like a child who never grew up. I had to work, do house chores, and take care of him. Whenever I complained, he'd say, "You're older than me, so you should be the one taking care of me." Seeing how justified he looked, I couldn't help but think of when we were together, how we supported and took care of each other. Life back then was really beautiful. Seeing the nostalgia in her eyes, I quickly cut her off. Willow shot me a resentful glance but kept going anyway. I thought if I just gave a little more, if I endured it, I could make the marriage work, but I didn't expect that just 1 year into the marriage, Makoto cheated. He said that in order to win me back, he had already put up with me for a long time, but after getting me, he realized it wasn't that special, nothing like how it felt before. I cried, I fought, I begged, but he didn't care at all. In the end, I lowered myself to the point of turning a blind eye, as long as he didn't do it in front of me. But even after all that, he still brought that woman home while I was at work. I scratched my head, genuinely curious. "And you could tolerate that?" Willow smiled faintly. "Of course not. I started collecting evidence and sued him. In the end, he left the marriage with nothing. You know, after his spleen rupture, he's had lasting complications. He gets stomach pain from time to time, needs regular checkups, and has to take medication for life. After losing everything in the divorce, he has no income. I heard he's now back in his hometown, living with his parents and relying on their meager earnings." I nodded and stood up. Seeing me get up, Willow grabbed me anxiously. "George, are you leaving?" I gave a short reply. "Yeah, knowing you two aren't doing well puts my mind at ease." Willow forced a bitter smile, on the verge of tears. "George, can I still contact you in the future, just like friends, chatting sometimes?" I left her with a carefree silhouette as I walked away. No, better to stay strangers. We've had nothing to say for a long time. Without caring what expression was left on Willow's face, I strode toward my wife, who was waiting for me in the distance. A better life was right ahead. Only a fool would turn back.